The envelope hit the floor before she could catch it. "You lied to me." Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the apartment like broken glass. She was standing in the middle of his living room, his real living room, with marble floors that stretched wider than her entire apartment, floor-to-ceiling windows behind her, a city skyline blinking 40 stories below. Her hands were shaking, not from cold, from something that had no clean name yet. "You lied to me every single day. You're not a mailman, are you?" He stood across from her, still in the expensive suit his assistant had laid out that morning, and for the first time in his entire life, Nathan Cole had nothing to say, not one word. Cut to 6 months earlier. The rooftop garden at the Cole Tower was empty at 11:30 at night, the way Nathan preferred it. He had a glass of 30-year-old whiskey in his hand, and absolutely no reason to enjoy it. Below him, Manhattan hummed its usual hungry song. Taxis honking, music leaking from rooftop bars, the endless, restless energy of a city that never stopped wanting things. Nathan had given the city plenty to want. Cole Enterprises was worth $4.7 billion. He had been on the cover of Forbes twice, was invited to every dinner worth attending, and had not had a single honest conversation in longer than he could remember. "You're doing it again," Marcus said from behind him. Marcus Webb had been Nathan's best friend since their second year at Columbia, back when Nathan still wore shoes with holes in them and split ramen with a roommate. Now Marcus ran Cole Enterprises' legal division, and still somehow told Nathan the truth when nobody else would. He dropped into the chair beside him and helped himself to the whiskey without asking, staring at the city like it owes you something. Maybe it does. It gave you everything. Everything isn't the same as something that matters. Nathan took a long drink. "Janelle called me today." Marcus went quiet for a second. Janelle. The name was a small grenade between them. What did she want? Nothing. That's the point. She called to tell me she was engaged. She wanted me to hear from her before I saw it on page 6. He set the glass down carefully on the stone railing. "You know what the funny part is? I wasn't even upset. I just felt nothing, like she was telling me the weather. Nathan, she said she loved me for 2 years, Marcus, 2 years. And the whole time she was calculating." He turned away from the skyline. "What's the number? The exact number where someone stops seeing you and starts seeing the account balance? Is it 100 million? 200? Not everyone is Janelle. Show me the evidence." Marcus leaned back and folded his arms. He knew that tone. That tone meant Nathan had already decided something and was looking for an argument to sharpen the decision against. "What are you thinking?" "I want to disappear for a while." "Disappear?" "Not literally. Just become someone else. Someone with nothing. Someone a woman would have to choose for the right reasons." "That is the most absurd thing you have said since you wanted to buy Iceland." "I was serious about Iceland." "I know. That's why it was absurd." Marcus sat forward. "Nathan, you can't just become a regular person. You don't know how to be a regular person. You had a driver at 16. I learned fast. This isn't a business strategy. These are actual human beings you'd be deceiving. I'm not going to hurt anyone. I just want to see, I need to know, if there is one woman out there who would choose me when I have nothing to offer except myself." He picked up the glass again. "One woman, Marcus. That's all." Marcus stared at him for a long moment. Then he exhaled. "You're going to do this no matter what I say." "Yes." "Then I want on the record that I told you this was a terrible idea." "Noted. Now help me figure out who I'm going to be." The answer, after 3 days of Marcus arguing against it and Nathan ignoring him, was a postal route worker in the West Village neighborhood of Manhattan. Marcus had a contact at the City Postal Service, a logistics consultant, who helped arrange a temporary legitimate placement with enough paperwork to hold up under casual inspection. Nathan would work a real route, carry real packages, earn a real wage that would not cover a single dinner he was accustomed to. He would live in a small rental apartment 2 blocks from the route, furnished with things he bought at a hardware store and a discount furniture outlet. He stood in the middle of the space the first night, 600 square feet, smelling faintly of paint and old carpet, and felt something he had not expected. Interested. The first morning nearly broke him. The bag weighed 42 pounds. Nathan had a personal trainer, worked out 5 days a week, had arms that his tailor complained about, and still, after 3 blocks, the bag was winning. The route's supervisor, a compact woman named Deborah who had been doing this for 19 years and had the patience of someone who had seen every type of incompetent substitute ever born, watched him readjust the strap for the 4th time and said, "You ever delivered mail before?" "I'm a quick learner." She looked at him the way people look at a raccoon trying to open a car door, impressed by the attempt, not confident about the outcome. "The Castellano building is tricky," she said. "Intercom on Unit 4B is broken. You knock 3 times. Pause, knock twice. Otherwise, Mrs. Castellano thinks it's her ex-husband and she will not open that door. 3, pause, 2. And Mr. Rivera in 7C will try to give you a sandwich. Take it. He gets offended if you don't. His wife passed last year, and he's still making lunch for 2. She said it flat, like a fact, but something in it landed heavy. "You ready?" Nathan looked down the street. Row houses and brownstones. A coffee car on the corner, already building a line. Pigeons arguing over something near a trash can. A woman jogging past with stroller. A teenager sitting on front steps eating cereal from a plastic cup. Ordinary. Completely, entirely ordinary. "Yeah," he said. "I'm ready." He was not ready. By the end of the first week, Nathan had learned several things about the world he had been too wealthy to inhabit. He had learned that the broken step on the stoop of 114 Barrow Street would catch your left foot if you weren't paying attention, which he discovered on day 2 when he went down on one knee and scattered a full bag of first-class mail across the sidewalk. He had learned that the coffee car on the corner, run by a man named Petro who kept a small radio playing Ukrainian folk music, made the best espresso he had tasted in a decade, better than anything served in Cole Tower's executive kitchen, and that it cost $2, which felt like a correction the universe had owed him. He had learned that most people walked past him like he was furniture, eyes sliding right over the blue uniform without registering a human being inside it, which was quietly the most educational thing that had ever happened to him. And he had learned that the woman in apartment 2A of the Oleander building on Perry Street always left a paper cup of water outside her door for him on hot mornings. He noticed the cup on the 3rd day. It was sitting on the mat, still cold, with a small sticky note that said, "For the male person, stay hydrated." He stood there looking at it for longer than the route schedule allowed. On the 4th day, there was another cup. On the 5th day, he knocked, partly because he felt ridiculous taking a glass of water from a stranger's door without at least acknowledging them, and partly, though he didn't fully admit this to himself, because he was curious. The door opened, and there was Claire Whitfield. She was not what he would have cast if he'd been building a love interest from scratch. She was medium height, wearing paint-stained jeans and an oversized sweatshirt with a small hole near the collar. Her dark hair pulled up in the kind of knot that happens when someone forgot they put it there. She had a small paintbrush tucked behind her ear and a smear of cadmium yellow on her left wrist. She looked at him the way people look at someone they expected to keep being anonymous, slightly surprised that he'd knocked. "Oh," she said. "Hi. I just want to say thank you for the water. You looked like you were melting," she said simply. "Last Thursday you were sweating through your whole shirt by the time you hit our block." He blinked. She had noticed him before he noticed her. That almost never happened. Yeah, the bag is heavier than it looks. Do you want to come in for a second? I just made a full pot of iced coffee and I live alone, so it's either you or the houseplants." He should have said no. The rules Marcus had laid out. Don't get attached, keep it surface level, observe, don't engage deeply, were very clear. He said yes. The apartment was everything his wasn't. Small and warm and completely alive. Canvases leaned against every available wall. Some finished, some in progress. Colors everywhere. Deep blue landscapes, close-up botanicals. What looked like a portrait of an older woman laughing. Books were stacked on the coffee table in a way that meant they were being read, not displayed. A cat Nathan had not been warned about materialized from somewhere and sat down directly on his postal bag with the energy of a creature who owned everything. "That's Rembrandt," Claire said, handing him a glass. "He has no respect for personal space or property." Appropriate name. She smiled. It was a real smile, the kind that didn't calculate first. "Are you an art person?" "I know enough to appreciate it. She looked at the canvas nearest a window, a half-finished thing in shades of gray and amber, the shape of a city street at night, rain implied rather than shown. I teach at the Community Arts Center on Hudson 3 days a week. The rest of the time I try to remember why I do this when it's just me and Rembrandt and zero gallery callbacks. Do you get a lot of those? Gallery callbacks. I get a lot of politely worded rejections, which is a different thing. She said it without self-pity, which he found remarkable. What about you? Did you always want to do this? Nathan opened his mouth, and for a half-second the real answer almost came out. He caught it. It's honest work, he said, which was true in a way she wasn't meant to understand yet. I like being outside. I like knowing a neighborhood by its details, instead of just its name. She looked at him thoughtfully, the way someone looks when they sense there's more to a sentence than the words in it. Then she let it go. I get that. I moved here from Ohio 6 years ago because I needed the city to be real to me, not just an idea. You can't paint a place you've only read about. Did it work? Most days. She leaned against the counter. Some days I miss quiet. What does quiet feel like to you? It was an odd question, and he knew it the second it came out. She tilted her head, like something I don't have to explain. She paused. That probably sounds strange. No, he said. It sounded exactly right. He left 10 minutes later, with the mail delivered and the iced coffee half finished, because he'd been too absorbed in the conversation to drink it properly. He was 3 buildings down the street before he realized he was smiling, not the performance of a smile, the involuntary kind, the kind that happens before the brain catches up to the face. Marcus called that evening. How's it going? Please tell me you're bored and ready to come back. I met someone. Silence. Nathan, I know. It has been 1 week. I know. You are supposed to be observing the human condition, not participating in it at high speed. She left me water, Marcus, on her doorstep, for a person she had never spoken to. She noticed I was hot and she left water. He sat on the edge of his discount furniture store couch and stared at the peeling paint on the opposite wall. When was the last time someone did something for me that they didn't need to? A long pause. I'm getting a bad feeling about this. You have bad feelings about everything. And I have a remarkable track record of being right. Another pause. What's her name? Claire. Marcus was quiet for a moment, and Nathan knew him well enough to know it was the kind of quiet that meant he was worried but had already accepted the outcome. Just be careful, okay? She's a real person. I know she's a real person. That's the point. The deliveries over the following weeks became the best part of Nathan's day in a way he hadn't anticipated and couldn't fully explain. It wasn't just Claire, though it was quietly mostly Claire. It was the whole texture of the route. The way Mr. Rivera on 7C actually did try to hand him a sandwich every Tuesday and Thursday, and the way Nathan started actually wanting the sandwich because they were good, and because of 10 minutes on the stoop listening to the older man talk about his late wife. Carmen was the most unguarded conversation Nathan had access to. The way Mrs. Castellano's door cracked open on the 3-2 knock, and an arm appeared holding a candy bar every Friday, without explanation. The way the neighborhood existed in a different register than the world Nathan had come from. Slower, more textured, weighted with real history. And the way Claire started leaving the door open on the days she expected him. It started raining on a Tuesday in late October, the kind of rain that comes sideways and makes an argument out of every umbrella. Nathan was 3/4 through his route when the sky made its decision, and he made it to the Oleander building doorway soaked to collar, his bag wrapped in the plastic cover Deborah had given him on week 1. He was buzzing 2A to leave a package notice when the intercom crackled and Claire's voice came through. Get in here before you drown. She had a towel ready. He didn't know what to do with that. He stood in her doorway dripping on the welcome mat, and she handed him the towel the way you hand someone something they clearly need, without ceremony or negotiation. Rembrandt observed from the bookshelf with magnificent indifference. I have soup, she said. Sit down. I still have 6 buildings on the route. 6 buildings in a monsoon. Sit down for 10 minutes. The packages will survive. She was already at the stove. He sat. The apartment was warm in a particular way of small spaces and rain. close and amberlit, the sound of water against the windows doing something to the quality of the air inside. A canvas on the easel near the window was different from the last time he'd been in, darker, more abstract, shapes that might have been people or might have been something older than people. "What is that one?" he asked. She glanced at it over her shoulder. "I'm not sure yet. Sometimes I don't know what I'm painting until it's almost finished." She brought 2 bowls of soup to the table, without asking if he wanted to eat with her. He appreciated the assumption. It started as a city at night, and it keeps becoming something else. "Like what?" She sat across from him and wrapped both hands around her bowl. "Like something that's pretending to be one thing while it's actually another." She said it without looking at him, her eyes on the canvas, and something in Nathan went very still. "Isn't that a strange thing to paint without meaning to? Maybe you meant to without knowing it." She turned to look at him then. That's a philosophical answer for a mailman. He looked back at her steadily. "Is that a disqualifier?" A small pause, then a real laugh, short and genuine and warm. "No, it's just interesting." She picked up her spoon. "Tell me something about yourself that has nothing to do with your job." "I don't sleep well." "Okay, why?" He thought about it. The true answer, the full answer, was a long, complicated thing involving the specific loneliness of being surrounded by people who wanted things from you. But the feeling underneath that answer was simple. "I lie awake thinking about whether the choices I've made are actually mine or just the path of least resistance dressed up as ambition." She was quiet for a moment. The rain pushed against the window. "I think about that too," she said. "I gave up a graphic design job. Stable, good pay, my parents were so relieved, and moved here with $400 and a box of art supplies. And some nights I lie awake and think, is this brave, or is this just me being too scared to be ordinary? Those might be the same thing." "What do you mean?" "Being brave and being too scared to be ordinary. Maybe they're just 2 names for the same choice." She looked at him in a way that made him feel seen, which was different from being looked at, which happened to Nathan constantly. Being looked at was a performance. Being seen was something that moved through your chest and left you briefly without armor. "I don't know your name," she said suddenly. "I've been giving soup to a stranger." "Nathan," he said, which was the one true thing he let himself keep. "Nathan, Claire." She said her own name like she was offering it, not stating it. "Do you want more soup, Nathan?" He stayed for 40 minutes. The route ran late. Deborah did not ask why, and he did not explain, and somehow that was fine. November came in cold and full of complication. He and Claire had developed a kind of easy rhythm that frightened him when he thought about it too directly. The way you only see a candle flame clearly if you don't stare at it. She had his number now. Texted him dumb things she found funny. Sent him a photo once of a pigeon that was standing on a fire hydrant looking furious with the caption, "This is you when the bag is heavy." He had laughed for a real minute, alone in his rental apartment, and then sat there feeling the weight of everything he wasn't telling her. Because he was lying, not in statements. He hadn't said anything specifically false, but in architecture. The whole structure of who she thought he was false, and the more real she became to him, the heavier the architecture. Marcus noticed. "You got that look." "What look?" "The one where you've gotten exactly what you wanted, and now you're terrified of it." They were on the phone. Nathan walking home from the route in the early dark of November evening. "How serious is this?" "She thinks I'm a mailman, Marcus." "You are a mailman. You know what I mean." "Nathan," Marcus's voice dropped. "You need to tell her. The longer you wait." "I know. The worse it gets." "I know." He stopped walking. A couple passed him, arm in arm, laughing about something. I need a little more time. I just need her to know me first. As whatever this version of me is. So that when she finds out, she already knows the real part underneath all the money. The real part is also the part that owns $4.7 billion of assets. That's not the real part. "Nathan, I'll tell her. Soon. I just need a little more time." He started walking again. "How are things at the office?" Marcus was quiet in a way that meant he had more to say and had decided to save it. "Things at the office are fine. Things outside the office are what concern me. The trouble arrived, as trouble often does, quietly and from a direction Nathan hadn't thought to watch. Watch! Her name was Sasha. She was a features editor at a lifestyle magazine, which meant she was professionally curious and personally relentless, and she had moved into the building across the street from Claire 6 weeks ago. She and Claire had bonded over a broken elevator and a shared love of overpriced candles, which meant she was now a fixture at Claire's kitchen table on Thursday evenings when Nathan sometimes stayed late. Sasha looked at Nathan the first time they met with an expression he recognized from boardrooms and charity galas. The expression of someone placing your face against a mental catalog. He kept his manner easy, his answers short, his eye contact just below the level that invites challenge. She seemed satisfied. He thought he'd handled it. He hadn't. 3 days later, Claire mentioned casually that Sasha had asked if Nathan had a twin brother who might be Nathan Cole, the businessman. Nathan laughed it off. People say I look like him sometimes. It's the bone structure, apparently. Claire had rolled her eyes. The bone structure? You're ridiculous. And laughed. And he laughed with her, and it felt terrible. The way it feels to nearly lose your balance on a high ledge and only catch yourself at the last second. He called Marcus that night. We have a problem. Marcus arrived in the city the next morning with the energy of a man who had been waiting to say, I told you so for 2 months, and was exercising extraordinary restraint. They sat in Nathan's rental apartment. Marcus perched on the discount furniture store couch with a visible effort not to comment on it, and went through the situation. If Sasha pursues it, she will find something, Marcus said. She's media. That's her entire skill set. One photo search, one social connection. That's all it takes. Then I need to tell Claire before Sasha does. Yes, Nathan. That is what telling someone before they find out from someone else means. I'm not ready. Ready is a luxury you've officially run out of. Marcus leaned forward. Nathan, think about what it will feel like for her if she finds out from a magazine editor across the street versus hearing it from you, directly, as a choice you made because you respect her. He knew Marcus was right. He had known Marcus was right for weeks. Knowing and doing are separate rooms, and the door between them requires more than knowledge to open. It requires a willingness to stand in the blast radius of someone else's hurt and not look away. Nathan sat with that for a long moment in his small apartment that smelled of paint and cold coffee. Then he stood up. I'm going tonight. Do you want me to? No, this is mine. He bought flowers on the corner, then stood looking at them for half a block feeling stupid, then kept walking anyway because they were already bought and also because he thought she might like them and he was past the point where his own dignity was a priority. He buzzed 2A. She let him in. She was in the yellow-lit kitchen when he came up the stairs, something on the stove, Rembrandt on the counter in a location that seemed to violate several hygiene principles. She turned when he came in, and her face did the thing it did. Open, genuinely glad to see him, no calculation in it at all, and it hit him like something physical. Those are nice, she said, looking at the flowers. They're for you. She took them and found a glass for them without making it a big moment, which was so entirely Claire that it pressed against something undefended in his chest. You okay? She asked, reading his face with the same ease she read her canvases. You look like you're working something out. I need to tell you something. She turned fully then, the flowers and the glass on the counter behind her. Something in his tone had changed the room, and she could feel it. Okay, I haven't been honest with you. He stayed near the doorway. He needed her to have room. Not about things I said. I meant everything I said. But about who I am. He paused. My name is Nathan Cole, the full name, and I don't work for the post office. Not really. He stopped. 2 months of the most genuine version of himself he had managed in a decade, and here was a seam in it. I'm Nathan Cole of Cole Enterprises, the company. I own it. She didn't move. The expression on her face went through several things quickly. Confusion first, then a kind of processing that moved behind the eyes, then something that was reaching toward understanding and arriving somewhere much harder. How much is Cole Enterprises worth? She asked, and her voice was very careful and very quiet. For $0.7 billion. Silence. Rembrandt, with a cat's infallible sense of dramatic timing, jumped off the counter and left the room. You're the billionaire, she said. The one Sasha thought you looked like. Yes. And you've been walking a mail route for 2 months. Yes. Why? It wasn't really a question. It was the precursor to a question she was bracing herself to hear the answer to. He told her the truth. All of it: Janelle, the rooftop, the conversation with Marcus, the decision, the theory that he could only find something real if he stopped being what he was, and just became a person walking the world with nothing attached to his name. He watched her face while he talked. She listened completely, the way she did everything, with her whole attention present and nothing held back, and he thought, even through the fear of what her expression was becoming, that this was exactly what had undone him from the beginning. I wasn't testing you, he said. I want to be clear about that. This wasn't a test. I was testing myself. Whether I could be something real to someone without the scaffolding. But I didn't consent to being part of that. Her voice was still quiet, which was worse than if she had raised it. I became real to you on false terms, Nathan. That's not something that only affects you. I know. Every conversation we had, every time I told you something honest about myself, you were sitting across from me with information I didn't have. That's not just a lie by omission. That's a power imbalance. You knew everything and I knew nothing. She turned away, looked at the canvas on the easel, the one that kept becoming something pretending to be something else. Her shoulders carried the weight of it. I trusted you. I know. His voice cracked slightly on it. I know, and I'm sorry, and I know that sorry doesn't rebuild what I broke. She was quiet for a long moment. I need you to go. Claire, I'm not saying forever. I'm saying tonight. She turned back and her eyes were dry, which was somehow harder to look at than tears. I need to think without you in the room, Nathan. Please. He left. The following 2 weeks were the longest of Nathan's adult life, which was saying something, because he had spent a meaningful portion of his adult life in boardrooms watching lawyers argue. He went back to Cole Tower, put the suit back on, sat in the executive meetings, and signed the documents and ate the catered lunches, and felt every minute of the distance between the life he'd chosen and the one he'd stumbled into on a mail route in the West Village. Marcus didn't say anything for the first 3 days. On the 4th day, over coffee, he said, "How are you?" "Empty." "Yeah." Marcus nodded. "That tracks." She was right about all of it. Everything she said. I went in without asking. I borrowed her realness for my own needs and called it a search for authenticity. He set the coffee down. I had everything, and I lost the one thing I actually wanted. Another week passed. Then, on a cold Thursday morning, his phone lit up, a text from Claire. For words. "Can we talk?" Saturday. He typed back immediately. "Yes. Anywhere. Whenever." She chose the coffee cart on the corner of his old route. Petro's cart, with the Ukrainian folk music. Nathan was there 20 minutes early, standing in a cold that he barely felt, watching the cart run its usual efficient morning operation. She arrived exactly on time, in a heavy coat, hands in her pockets, and she looked at him for a moment without speaking, doing the things she did, actually looking, reading what was there rather than what she expected. "I've been thinking about what you said," she said, "about testing yourself." "Claire, you don't have to." "Let me finish." She stepped closer. Her breath made small clouds in the cold air. "I'm still angry. I want you to know that. Not performing angry for the sake of it. Actually genuinely angry, because what you did cost me something in the trust department that I'm going to have to rebuild, and that's work I didn't ask for." She paused. "But..." He waited. "But I also know what those 2 months were. I was there too, and what I thought I felt, that wasn't nothing, Nathan. I'm not going to pretend it was nothing just because it happened under complicated circumstances." She looked at him steadily. "So I'm not forgiving you today. Today I'm just willing to see if you could be honest going forward. Not the version of honest that's comfortable. Actually honest. I can do that. The money doesn't fix this. I want you to understand that very clearly. If you show up with anything resembling a dramatic gesture involving money, I will leave. Understood? And I need you to know that I'm not choosing you because of what you have. If anything, that's one more thing you'll have to work around." She said it with the directness of someone who had spent 2 weeks getting very clear with herself. "I'm still not entirely sure what I'm choosing. but I'm willing to find out. Nathan felt something shift in him at a structural level. Not relief exactly, more like the specific sensation of something that had been braced against impact for too long, finally remembering it didn't have to be rigid. "Thank you," he said. "Don't thank me yet." She glanced at the cart. Petro was watching them from behind the espresso machine with the proprietary interest of someone who had watched this block long enough to have opinions about it. "Buy me a coffee," she said. "And then I want you to tell me one true thing. Not about the money, not about the company. One true thing about yourself that you've never told anyone." He bought the coffee. $2 each, the best in the city. They stood on the corner while the morning built around them, ordinary and irreplaceable. "I've been afraid my whole adult life," he said. "Not a failure. Of being enough without the things I built. Of being just a person, and having that be sufficient." He looked at her. "These 2 months were the first time I ever found out the answer." She wrapped both hands around her cup, looked at him, said nothing for a moment, which with Claire meant she was actually hearing it rather than preparing a response. Then quietly, "What was the answer?" "I don't know yet," he said honestly, "but I think it might depend on who's asking." She almost smiled. Almost. That was enough to build from. "Before you go, drop a comment below and tell me. Was she right to walk away, or should she have stayed? I want to hear your take. And if this story hit something in you, hit that like button, subscribe so you never miss the next one, and I will see you in the next video.